Hey up YouTube, what's going on? AmazingChi here bringing you the Week 1 PPL recap video, and I'm joined here by Mr. Travesty.
Hello everyone.
Hey Trav. So yeah, this is the Week 1. You may notice it's a teeny bit late, but we got there in the end. And we're not really going to try and waste too much of your time here, so we're just going to get right into the first matchup, which Trav is going to take you through. And that is between Nidoqueen's Park Rangers and... is it Miami Rotom Heat?
Miami Rotom Heat, yes.
Yes,
so that is RhyQuinn and Erasthamus Gaming, if you don't know them. This was a very, very close match. Ended up a 1-0 in favor of Ethan and the Miami Rotom Heat. It was a bit interesting. In the mid stages of the game, RhyQuinn was spamming Volt Turn to try and get some momentum, but Ethan basically had control for most of the game. Darmanitan came in late, a Toy Scarf Darmanitan, and just tore through Ethan's team until he was able to sell. He was basically letting it rack up recoil until Scarf's Darmy could OHKO it, or could finish it off with Psyshock. So there were some interesting plays. Unfortunately, Mega Aggron got parried a few times in a row, which meant it couldn't, because it was a cursed Rest Talk Aggron. But overall, I think Ethan just played a lot more conservatively. He knew what he needed to keep to win and was able to pull out the close victory in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of vaguely... I wouldn't say like neither player played badly at all. So, I mean...
No, neither of them
not
made...
taking away from RhyQuinn there, but...
prepared badly. Darmanitan was RhyQuinn's main offensive weapon. There was one player I really, really liked, which didn't work out for him. He went for Mirror Coat with his Assault Vest Tentacruel and unfortunately got knocked off. But that could have been very, very useful.
Yeah,
but unfortunately,
there was sort of some... I mean, there was sort of the double paralysis on Mega Aggron, which kind of cancelled that move out a little bit, but, you know... But... obviously Darmanitan just wrecking through the sort of late game. But I think the interesting thing there was that, that Starmie wasn't packing a water move. Because it wouldn't have needed that much recoil. I mean...
Well, it would have needed no recoil if it had stalled, but I think, I can't remember exactly what moves it did have, but Ethan needed Psyshock.
Yeah, so... But, I mean, it still worked out, and, he sort of managed to just get by. And I mean, that decision probably nearly almost call him out, but
could have cost him the game. But it was also, he was hoping the recoil would be enough to get a guaranteed to finish Darmanitan off, so he was just trying as much as possible. But I think that's enough about the first games. How about you move on to the second one for the week?
We're going to move straight on to Schady and the Bayern Munich versus Keyno and FC Eviton. Again, this is one, well, there was sort of one very big key piece of hacks sort of very early on in the match, which was the sort of big freeze on the Azumarill, which kind of, well, it just rendered it useless for the entire match. But sort of the sad thing is for Keyno there was that Schady was actually going to be like very generous the next turn and went for the Scald anyway to thaw it out. So if he stayed in, he would have actually had Azumarill for the rest of the game. But he wasn't to know that, and he switched it out. But I mean, like, sort of again, neither player really played too badly. There's no like glaring errors or anything such as that. It just sort of, the freeze sort of made it 6-on-5 from the start, pretty much, and it sort of didn't really continued that way for the rest of the match. Just sort of, Schady continually had sort of like one up on Keyno for the rest of the match, pretty much, and Reggie still just sort of just didn't die, which is kind of what it does.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the only sort of questionable thing was like letting Manafi go down for no reason. But
also setting up Cobalion tried to set up a little bit too early, I think, and Keyno addressed that in his commentary. He just said, went for an agility when he should have maybe Swords Dance to get some more damage on the Manaphy, because I believe it was a fully physically defensive Manaphy to help take on things like Entei and Azumarill to a certain extent. So Cobalion wasn't able to get any real damage on that Manaphy, so
I mean, I think
it kind of wasted its chance.
I mean, I've written down Registeel MVP, but I put underneath but lucky, because obviously Thundurus missed the second Focus Blast, and if it hadn't, it would have died. But if Thundurus had stayed in and gone for another one, and it would have connected, then it would have gone down anyway. So, I mean, I don't know how crucial that was by the end, but and I think there was enough damage on Thunderous by that point for it to be taken out. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, the healing. I will just say the healing wish was a nice touch as well.
Yeah.
From Keyno there, because that got Thunderous wet.
The advantages of...
He had a decision there actually, because because I don't know if was Azumarill dead by the time the healing wish went off, because he could have recovered that.
Remember.
But I think Thunderous was the right choice just because it did more. You know,
Thunderous put a lot of pressure onto Shardy's team.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it wasn't able to actually finish anything off, but it just, took lots of damage from a lot of things. Also,
just so you know, any pedants out there, that is the reason why the Shardy's kills add up to 5. It's because one of them is the healing wish.
Yeah.
So that doesn't get counted in. So before anyone says there's one missing, it's because it was a healing wish. So that's why they only has up to 5, not 6. So yeah, we kind of want to get through these relatively quickly. So it's back over to you, Trav, for the next one.
Yes, and we have the Bremen and Evelyn, or H2O Drink It, against Alex, OnesieBanette, and the Dino. So this was a fairly decisive win in the favour of the Dino. They end up winning 4-0 with Scarf Nidoqueen able to just clean up late game. But the real sort of turning point of the match was when Altaria started setting up Dragon Dances, and unfortunately Evelyn's Liepard, who was her main answer because it can Encore it into Dragon Dance or T-Wave it, had been paralyzed really early game by Uxie, and as it went for Encore, got fully paralyzed, meaning that instead of Altaria being locked into Dragon Dance and her being able to go into Roserade, then Sludge Bomb it to death, it was able to just OHKO the Liepard and then just set up all over the rest of her team. But Alex actually misgenned his Altaria, so I believe it had no happiness and
that's the conclusion
no
we've come to.
Because like +4 return did like 30% to a Zapdos or something ridiculous. So despite that, Altaria managed to pick up 2 kills before going down. If it had had the EVs and happiness done properly, like if he rode around with it for a while, the Soothe Bell got his happiness up, it probably would have just swept the entire game.
Yeah.
But in any case, it did manage to weaken things enough to the point where Nidoking could just come in and completely clean up.
Right, sure.
There were some very, very good, I'm not going to say mind games, I guess, just Liepard did very, very well early on with being able to copycat a bunch of interesting moves, managed to get Stealth Rocks up, even though, I think Evelyn brought Stealth Rocks and anything else, but managed to copycat Uxie's rocks back onto Alex's side, which I thought was pretty neat. But yeah, Evelyn didn't really have an answer for Nidoking, and Alex exploited that once things like Zapdos had been worn down, which was her primary response. Interestingly, Zapdos also got critted early in the game on a switch into Nidoking, which probably didn't end up mattering because it roosted up so much throughout the rest of the game, but it did put it on the edge for a little while there. Again, neither player played terribly. And possibly needed something else to try and check Mega Altaria, because when you have a threat like that on the opposing team, it is really, really hard when you're team building, but you often want to try and have 2 or 3 ways to deal with the biggest threats in your opponent's team, but it's really, really because when your opponent has a bunch of threats, you can't have something to beat all of them. So it was unfortunate that she let her Liepard get paralyzed that early, and it did get fully parried on that exact turn. If you'd have managed to get off that one turn, if it hadn't been parried and managed to Encore and then copycat the Dragon Dances, that could have been seriously threatening. But which I think was potentially Evelyn's plan. But yeah, the para just completely destroyed that that idea.
I mean, the score doesn't particularly reflect the battle, as you said. But, I mean, I think the Mega Altaria probably did have these sort of EVs. It was just, 0 happiness. It was a case of, the sort of Waffles curse. But, as such. But, of course, there is another important thing to mention right here as well. Of course, whilst Nidoking did sweep up late game, Staraptor never saw the field either. So, there was another potential thing that could have destroyed the late game as well. So
Alex has a lot of really, really potent offensive threats, those 3 in particular. And like I said, you can't have a reliable check to all of them.
Yeah. I mean, it's also important to note as well, of course, it is Evelyn's first week in the battle, and she definitely did not do herself, let herself down by any means. So.
No. So I think we'll move on to the next battle now, which is yours.
Yeah, we're going to move on to sort of another newcomer to the league, but in Necro and the Eternus Enders versus Jack and the Norwich Skitty. This sort of hinged on I think what happened fairly early on with Jack's win condition, which he sort of let go down fairly too early. I mean, the rest of the battle wasn't played badly as such. I mean, but it probably was a huge mistake keeping Slyroh in on a Levani anyway, because even if you do expect sort of a physical move, it is still super effective. I mean, I don't know if it's going to do 50%. I don't know if it's going to do...
No physical move does 50% to a Mega Slyroh, but yes.
I mean, Levani does have high attack, but I don't know if any moves would still do 50% on the physical side. But the worst thing is, though, about that is, in Jack's commentary, he does mention Leaf Storm, and then it happens. So, I mean...
Yeah.
I mean, that's about it. I mean, that's probably the only sort of wrong move Jack pretty much made the entire thing, and sadly it was probably the most crucial move of the entire battle on his side of things. I mean, Necro sort of did everything else well. I mean, there's not really anything bad to say about either side other than that. I mean, Necro made a mistake genning the Talonflame, or at the very least putting the wrong berry on it for natural gift purposes. In his thing he says Salak, but it's actually lychee, that's grass, so I think that's pretty much what he ended up with, the grass one, because that did diddly squat to the Heatran. For future reference, it's apricot you're looking for. But it did actually still go down to the wire despite the Slyroh, so let's not pretend, for any second that letting Slyroh go down led to a whitewash here. It did go down to the wire, went down to a 10 HP in fact, which pretty much just summed up the fact one turn sort of earlier in the battle, which actually Necro comments on in his side of the video, saying where he forces Fortress to either rapid spin or set up his own rocks. And Jack went for the rapid spin. By not putting up rocks, Tyranitar had just enough HP at the very end to survive the final hit with just 10 HP.
I think that's a testament to how bulky Tyranitar is with that Sandstring ability, giving it the special defense boost. It was able to live a 4-time super effective focus blast from a Heliolisk, which is just ridiculous. I think it wasn't even at full HP when it took that hit. It had some HP investment as well.
I don't think it was even Assault Vest either, was it?
Nope.
No, so...
I believe it was more offensive.
So...
It's just ridiculously fat mon.
Yeah, I think he put special defense investment in it, but it wasn't Assault Vest. So, yeah, I mean, if I know too well this of the bulk of Tyranitar, but this is not my place to go into that. So, yeah, I mean, the only arguable thing is, just the Slyroh mistake, but, Jack will learn from that and, just preserving your win condition. So,
particularly when you have a defensive win condition, like things, main things that come to mind are Mega Venusaur, Mega Slyroh, things like that, even Mega Sableye, which are really, really hard for the opponent to take down. It's important to try and keep them healthy as much as possible, because when you need something to take hits, when you need your win condition to be able to take hits, you need to, and have reliable recovery, you need to use that reliable recovery to keep them healthy as much as possible and not leave them in on things that can do a lot of damage. Even if it won't take you out, if it just brings you down to low HP where you can be revenged by something else, it's never good. So it's something to get used to, playing with a really, really defensive win condition. It's something not a lot of people could do well.
Yeah, I mean, arguably, even if you sort of did fear the Leaf Storm, but, sort of predicted a physical move, just go for the recovery move instead, and then that way you're covered. But, it's sort of the heat of the battle, and, we make these mistakes, so we're not going to, judge it too harshly for that.
Oh no, it's as people say, hindsight is 20/20. That jazz.
Indeed. So I think we should probably about time we move on to battle number 5.
Yes, the 5th battle of the week was the Osaka EVs, another newcomer to the PPL in Shadow Gaming Hub, and the Portland Timbers and RTK, who joined partway through last season, I believe. This was a pretty interesting match. Another defensive win condition in Mega Venusaur, which we were just talking about.
Whoop! Sorry. I have to rep the Mega Venusaur. I have to.
Unfortunately, it didn't get to do too much. It was relatively well stocked by Metagross. One good thing to note, Colton played with Krookodile really, really well. Managed to pursuit trap both the Latios and the Metagross and take them both out. It was a very, very hacksy battle, but in the end, RTK basically knew what he had to take out in order to win, and then he just had a Milotic left, which was able to stall out the remaining Mons on RTK's team with Toxicking a Milotic and then just Scalding Arcanine. There was an unfortunate Flare Blitz burn onto Milotic, which normally you would think would be good, but because of Marvel Scale means that it got a defense boost. I'm not sure how much that ended up mattering in the end, because it didn't take too many physical hits the rest of the game, but it was unfortunate from Colton's side that he couldn't rely on things like Krookodile to bring it down in a last-ditch effort before dying to a Scald, for example. Again, neither side played badly. They were just, RTK, I think, prepared a bit better and knew that Milotic was going to be a real problem if he managed to get rid of Mega Venusaur, and that was basically how the game turned out.
Yeah, I mean, it's also important to note that you know, it's another 1-0, so by no means, like you said, it was not another one-side battle at all. I mean, even though, like we said, you know, the match with Evelyn and Alex was a 4-0, but it wasn't really a 4-0 battle. So pretty much every battle this week was actually really well fought and really tight.
And this one almost went to Colton's side. Haxorus managed to set up a Dragon Dance, and it could have swept from that point, apart from Hitmontop was able to, the combination of a Fake Out and a Muck Punch brought it to within the range where Life Orb Recoil would kill Haxorus, and Dragon Claw was not able to take out the Hitmontop.
Yeah.
It was still Intimidate Hitmontops. They weren't Technician boosted priority moves, so I think that was really good preparation on RTK's part to bring both Fake Out and Muck Punch on a defensive Mon to help stop a Haxorus sweep, basically.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, the same thing applies to sort of a Scarf Moxie or Crocodile as well. I mean, if he'd have brought that,
it wasn't Scarf Moxie.
I mean, I was just saying, it would have stopped that as well. So
yes,
yeah. So especially with it being weak to the Muck Punch, of course, as well. But so he sort of prepared for either eventuality in 1-1 there, and that's sort of, like you said previously, that's sort of the key to this a little bit. Yeah. Being able to sort of prepare for multiple Mons on just one of your own is really, really helpful. Yeah. And he did that with that.
And you do see that happen a lot, is people come up with a really innovative set with one particular Mon to take on one particular threat on the opposing team, and it doesn't always work out. You often need it to be something which can deal with 2 or 3 threats. If they don't end up bringing that Mon for whatever reason, then you have one is basically 6 on 5 straight away, because you have something which is just complete dead weight. So yeah, it's very, very difficult to get used to, though, as both of us can attest.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm just staring at Colton's matchup here, and I'm seeing 4 of my own Mons here. So I mean, we have very similar teams, so I mean, I don't know why we aren't team building more often, but I think it's ridiculous how similar our teams are. But you even got one I wanted but didn't get, which is the Arcanine. So, and you brought all 5 of those. So it's a little bit weird watching those battles, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, it's just a very well hard-fought battle, and down to the wire again, pretty much. 1-0, very tight, and that leaves us with just one battle, I believe.
Yep, last one of the week.
That just leaves us with Schroomraver and Parasect Germain, or Germain, depending on how British you want to pronounce it, or French, depending on how you're feeling today. And Slyroh and the Pittsburgh Pyro, which have no other pronunciations. So. This is sort of probably the biggest talking point potentially of the week, this match. And this is sort of the Stone Edge miss, which I'm putting massive capital letters in the middle of my notes here. The Stone Edge miss. Donphan missing that sort of Stone Edge was crucial because Slyroh could have ended up winning 5-0. It could have been pretty much the only whitewash of the entire week if he'd hit that. But I mean, Shroom's sort of been playing himself down a little bit. He didn't play as bad as he's been saying he played the match, but it could have been like the biggest win of the week if he'd hit that Stone Edge. But he missed, and that meant Donphan went down to the sort of Thunderous, and that allowed Scyther on sort of Shroom side to get the sweep instead, and came essentially from 4-1 down to winning 1-0. So, rule of thumb: never underestimate the Scyther. Now, there's sort of a couple of things that Slyroh could have done anyway. I sort of watched his side, and he sort of mentioned having the map punch on the Conqueror. But if you know you're going to die anyway, you might as well just hit the priority move. And he didn't. It was still going to do negligible damage, but it's still some damage, just in case one of your mons later on can take a hit, which Gardevoir did. But I think it didn't really matter because it wouldn't have done enough damage with the Moonblast as well. But the only thing that would have won him the game at the end there, after the miss, was if he'd put Bullet Punch on Scissor instead of Iron Head, potentially. I haven't counted because I've tried to, and it just... all the websites
I believe it was choice banded Scissor, though, right?
If it was choice banded as well, then that was even more reason to put the Bullet Punch on it.
I think it was either choice banded or Life Orb, and if anyone knows anything about Scissor, a banded or Life Orb Bullet Punch hits so hard. Like, it just nukes things. So I think that could have potentially won him. I need to look at calcs in more detail, but
pretty much, probably almost certainly the combination of a sort of 4 times resistant. I think that is in 2 times resist because I don't think Bug actually does Bug resist fighting.
Yeah, it resists fighting, so it would have been
not
quite
entirely. I never really certain what Bug resists because it's a weird one, but
weird.
Definitely resist ground. I know that much, but even though it is resisted Mach Punch, it still would have done probably like 10 HP or something.
It is still from a Conkelder. Let's put it that way.
It's from a Conkelder, so it's still probably done 10 HP, and Scyther doesn't have the most HP in the first place. And then Scissor's Bullet Punch, and then Gardevoir first, and then Scissor's Bullet Punch probably would have been the better play, just so he outsped. I know there's nothing else to kill, so it doesn't really matter. You never really know, but because it didn't happen, but. Yeah, sort of. In these things, you kind of run as much priority as you can, especially when, as has been remarked over the past couple of weeks, how slow Slyroh's team is. On a whole, I believe his fastest mon is Typhlosion, which he bought, which is only based at 100.
I can't remember the exact reason for running Iron Head on Scissor, but as a general rule, I would put a priority move of base 60 power, because that's what it gets with the Technician, instead of a normal move of base 80 power, because I don't know if that was
more powerful,
that he needed. It's not more powerful because Iron Head's base.
Oh no, because it only takes it to 60. So I always get it confused. I always think it's from 60 to 90. My bad.
It's still not too much of a power difference. I'm not sure if there was, like I'm saying, if there was a particular calc or something where he needed Iron Head for a guaranteed Oko or a 2K
Mega
or something
Ordino.
like that.
If anything, it's probably the Ordino. But when you kind of look at the team, Scyther does not outspeed Victini. It doesn't outspeed Miss Majors. It doesn't outspeed Thunderous. I mean, I haven't got other, sort of Shroom's other mons up in front of me, but probably doesn't outspeed a few more of them. So, I think, did I say Scyther?
Scyther does outspeed Victini.
Yes, it is. Scissor doesn't outspeed Victini.
I thought you said Scyther, I think. Anyway.
I was saying Scissor doesn't outspeed Victini, Miss Majors, Thunderous, or Scyther. So having the Bullet Punch would have obviously it's resisted by Thunderous and Victini, but would have still helped potentially revenge kill.
I think Bullet Punch still does around 40% to Thunderous.
Yes, but even if it's revenge kill and it's still got a little bit less health, it's still going to potentially pick up that KO. And so Bullet Punch is a sort of a massive move in Scissor's arsenal, and should not really be overlooked for any reason. But
I think that's probably enough about It's probably heard people talking about Bullet Punch.
But other than that, actually, there's sort of another thing really just to talk about is Shroom was sort of playing down how well he played, because he's saying he played really badly. I think the only thing he really did wrong was his misplays with around that Typhlosion early game. Basically, was the only thing he did wrong, and he addressed that in the video itself. So can't really fault him on anything else in the rest of that battle. So
I would also say we've just basically talked about Sly not bringing bullet punches, bad preparation for ages, but he would have won. Very well would have won 5-0 if Donphan had just hit a Stone Edge, which is super I mean, it would have had to hit another Stone Edge on Scyther, but he would have been able to recover it at that point, I think. Yeah, so just really unfortunate for him. The Scarf Donphan was a brilliant idea, and it worked to take out the Victini. It almost won in the match in a 5-0 over one of the favourites for the season in Schroomraver and the Parasect Germain. So
he was high up there
really
last time, wasn't he?
So. Sly week there.
Yeah, I mean, Shroom, admittedly had nothing for it, but don't really let yourself get down to that too much, because who really predicts a Scarf Donphan? But
yeah,
you can't have to assume he had to scarf something just because of the low speed. But who expects Donphan?
I mean, he could also just
everyone now.
But anyway. I think it's time to move on to the MVP race.
Tables first, I believe. Tables. The tables MVP. We'll do the tables first. Nice and professional.
Starting from the bottom, we have the Herdia Bremen. Obviously, they had the biggest loss, so they're at the bottom. The table's not particularly interesting in week 1 because it's just asymmetrical arrangement. It had so many 1-0s. I think there were 3 1-0s this week, maybe 4. 4 1-0s. They're essentially 4 teams.
A lot of it's alphabetical, so.
Yeah. Basically, there's 2 teams at the top, 2 teams at the bottom, and then 2 groups of 4 where they're just arranged alphabetically. So we have the Herdia Bremen right at the bottom, FC Evitin in 11th place, with losing 3-0. The Pittsburgh Pyroar in 10th place, Osaka Evies 9th, Norwich Skitty 8th, and Nido Queen's Park Rangers 7th. But as I mentioned, all of 7 to 10 are all actually tied, technically.
Yeah. As are 6-3, which sort of stand as Portland Timbers, Parasect Germain, Miami Rotom Heat, and Eterna City Enders in 3rd place. Then sort of the 2 sort of standing out at the top here right at the moment, just because they recorded something higher than a 1-0, is Bayern Munich King 2 with that 3-0 victory, and then Kelta Dino with the 4-0 victory up in 1st place at the moment. Of course, there's only week 1, obviously there's a long way to go. Yet there's another 10 weeks to play. But that's how we are standing week 1. And that leads us on to the MVP.
Yes, I think I was a bit too eager to get into before.
Yeah. So it's always the most exciting, really, in my opinion.
You have 2 Mons, one of which I'm really, really excited to see up there, sitting at the top with 4 differentials. And there's Nido King, which obviously everyone knows is a pretty big threat in this format, and Scyther, which I think I'm going to quote Sly from, maybe paraphrase a little bit from his team analysis, where he goes, "I'm not too scared of Scyther because it's a Scyther," and it's currently sitting 2nd on the MVP.
Famous last word springs to mind there.
Sorry, Sly, I had to do that, but yeah, so I'm really, really happy to see something like Scyther, which I think is an NU mod. Sitting right up there with big threats like Nido King, and then obviously just underneath it you have Darmanitan, which everyone knows is just an automatic nuke button. You click Flare Blitz and something dies. Then Tyranitar 3-0, which could have gone down, very, very close to dying. That's Focus Blast. And then a very interesting one, which is actually Milotic, picking up a 2-0 because it was able to stall out basically the remainder of the Osaka team at the end of that game. And I believe there are a bunch of other Mons also sitting on 2-0, but I don't know what they all are.
I know one of them. I don't think it's actually that too many, because I think number 6 was Registeel, which, if we'd done a top 10, it'd been very exciting to see that in the top 10 as well. So, because it's a Registeel. Which,
And then there's a couple on 2-1 as well and things like that. So
don't really know all those off by heart, but I knew Registeel was number 6 because I sort of commented on it after week 1 in sort of the chat and everything. It's like, oh my god, Registeel is number 6 right now, because Registeel's famous for being that massive defensive wall and not a killer. So.
In any case, you do often get that in league format, is things that just refuse to die, do pick up kills, and so it's nice to see them getting some recognition on the MVP table occasionally.
And also, an important thing to know, I mean, I don't think it actually matters on these top 5 things, is that any kills by Stealth Rock or Toxic or Scald, well, that go to the Pokemon that cause the Scald or Toxic or set up the rocks. So it doesn't affect any of the top 5 here, I don't think. So it doesn't really matter. So,
yeah,
but in future weeks it may do. So just want to let you guys know.
And also, anything that went down to Life Orb Recoil doesn't get counted at all. So I can certainly see something like Darmanitan just killing itself. Darmanitan or Staraptor just killing themselves to recoil at some point. In any case, I think that's the end of everything we have to go through for the Week 1 recap.
Indeed, yes it is. So, I think that's it. Do you want to take us out, Trav, then?
I hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned to this channel for more PPL content. There will be a Week 2 recap. There will be Division 2 power rankings as well. Obviously, this is all for Division 1. Both Charlie and I are coaches in Division 2 as well, so make sure you go check out all that stuff. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the season.